Coming up, we got new music from PVRIS, Our Last Night, and more. And also apparently a Day to Remember bassist Joshua Woodard got in a car accident in 2017 and killed someone, and this has just recently become news. Alright, so let's start with new music from this week. First, we got a new music video for Grow by WILLOW featuring Avril Lavigne and Travis Barker. First thing I immediately noticed was the Kenny Hoopla cameo, but surprisingly Travis Barker himself was nowhere to be found in this video. But everyone looks cool, very nostalgic. It got 1 million views in like 2 or 3 days, which is a lot more than most pop punk videos get, so that's really cool to see. Now for the singles, first up is Dead Flowers by Health featuring Poppy. It's very eerie and ethereal, and I'm sure it's good for what it is, but at the end of the day, just not really for me, so I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Next is Wonder by One Ok Rock. This one's got more of a classic rock vibe, and it's fine, there's nothing wrong with it. I think it just lacks that special something, so I'm also gonna give this a 7 out of 10. Next is Appetite by Nathan James. Just in time for spooky season. It's very dark and grungy, and it suits his voice very, very well. 7.5. Okay, next is My Mother Wants Me Dead by carolesdaughter. These drugs are fucking with my head. I think my mailman is a fed. I know my... This one's got a funny lyrical concept, and it's just a very fun, upbeat, pop punk banger. 8 out of 10. And next is My Way by PVRIS. This one's super catchy. It's got a sick bass solo. It's funky, it's fresh, and I've never heard anything quite like it. 8.3 out of 10. Next is Runaway by Hollywood, Undead, and IMANBEK. Not quite sure how to pronounce it, but IMANBEK is a huge DJ with around 20 million monthly listeners on Spotify. So that is a really big deal for Hollywood Undead to be on a song with them. I think the song was a vibe, like it was chill and cool, but not a banger. So I'm gonna give this a 7.2 out of 10. Next up is Kastrup Expandau by Kali Koshinsky featuring Eskimo Callboy. High energy, intense, music video is epic and funny as expected. 7.5. Alright, next is The Lighthouse by SayWeCanFly featuring Cyrus. And yes, that is Cyrus, the brother of Miley Cyrus and singer of Metro Station. Pretty straightforward emo jam. I'm gonna give this 7.3. Alright, our last single is When We Were Broken by Our Last Night. When I heard it, I assumed this was just a cover of like some big pop song, so I looked up to see who the original artist is, and it's them. So you know, it's a great catchy melody, solid pop metalcore banger. 7.5 out of 10. All right, we got one album to review today. That is Slow Bloom by the Home Team. They've got a very interesting sound. It's very unique. Vocalist is unique. For example, here's my favorite song. Their catchiest song might be their like chill pop song of the record, which is Another Night Alone With You. This is only their second album, and it's quite good. They are definitely one of the most unique artists that I have discovered recently, and I think if they kick their songwriting up just a notch, I mean, they could blow up. They're really close to being amazing. So I'm gonna give Slow Bloom a solid 7.7. All right, moving on to our news story. Former bassist of A Day to Remember, Joshua Woodard, was involved in a fatal car crash in 2017. The crash was reported by a couple local Florida outlets, but they never mentioned that he was in A Day to Remember, and it never got picked up by mainstream media. But this crash was brought up in the Pop Punkers subreddit about 7 months ago. People were like, oh, is this him? But it was never confirmed for sure that it was him. and the story didn't really pick up any traction. Fast forward to a couple weeks ago, Joshua Woodard has left the band because they've been getting a lot of pressure due to sexual assault allegations against him. So that's the context right before this article comes out on Loudwire. So let's check out what they have to say. So a man named Brian Gonzalez Ortiz was in his car, completely stopped while exiting a shopping plaza and attempting to turn. Then Woodard suddenly and unexpectedly crossed over 3 lanes of traffic and crashed head-on into the driver's side of the Honda Civic. Gonzalez was declared dead at the scene of the crash. That's wild. He's just sitting there, waiting to turn, not even driving yet, and he's dead. In the report, vehicle homicide investigator Alan Soloway wrote, "I met with Woodard and observed his eyes to be red. He appeared dazed, and he had urinated himself. Woodard stated his attorney was on the way to the scene and he refused to speak with me prior to his attorney arriving." Okay, so it looks like he's probably on drugs. The report goes on to say that due to Woodard's lack of cooperation, the detective was unable to conduct an in-depth impairment assessment to determine if his observations were due to impairment or a recreation to a crash of this magnitude. He also declined the investigator's request to submit a voluntary blood sample. All right, so it looks like he's on drugs, so they're trying to do drug test, but he is refusing to cooperate, probably because he's on drugs and he knows it. And less than a month later, he went on tour. So he just killed a man, and instead of going to jail, he goes on tour. So later that year, he pleaded guilty to careless driving. He had his license suspended for 12 months and he was issued a $1,000 fine in order to pay $106 in mandatory court costs. So I don't know how much that's supposed to cost, but it seems like that's a very small fine and one that he was able to pay off easily in full. In the Pop Punker subreddit, someone said that they had to pay $30,000 for a DUI and they didn't even hurt anyone. And Gonzalez's father filed a wrongful death complaint in 2019 and voluntarily dismissed it in 2020. So I don't know what happened there, but seems a little suspicious. I also don't know how they kept such a wild story under the radar for so long. I mean, I guess he's a bassist, so he's used to it, but damn. I mean, someone in his management team must have known and helped him and also helped keep the story down. Now, I'm not necessarily throwing shade at the band or Epitaph Records, who they were signed to at the time, because I don't know who knew about it or who did what, and I have no way of checking. But the moral of the story is, if an artist is making a label lots of money, they will be protected at all costs. So that was some heavy news. If you want something to lighten the mood, then check out my reaction to My Way by PVRIS. That's all for now. So long and good night.